What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. I decided to go ahead and break this morning's video up into two parts because it went too long. I had to spend so much time on the Trey Hendrickson part of this that I didn't want to make the video half an hour long. But there are a couple other players I want to mention in this conversation. And while I think that the ultimate argument is very similar on both counts, I do think that there are some differences as well. So welcome back. If you didn't watch this morning's video, you should probably go do so because this is kind of a companion to that video. Like this video, click the thumbs up if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support the channel. So, yeah. Earlier today, I talked about the pros and cons and the wisdom and the possibility of trading for Trey Hendrickson. And my ultimate conclusion was basically, it's interesting, but you have to have a lot of faith in this offense to be good this year. At the very least, good, because that's a big investment to make on your defense, maybe becoming the best in the league. And again, I'm gonna say it again. Trading for a player that is 30 years old already, that's going to turn 31 before the end of this upcoming season, that's something that you do if you're ready to win it now. When I say win, I mean win the whole thing or come very, very close to it. So I have mixed thoughts on that for sure. I can see if we do it, I'm going to be excited, but I'm also going to be aware of the distinct possibility that it doesn't go the way that we want it to. So I think that that argument still persists for other similar players, but let's talk about a couple other guys who may be on the trade market, who the Seahawks could maybe go after. So the other guy that I think you can spend at least a few minutes talking about is Micah Parsons, star linebacker, edge rusher on the Dallas Cowboys. He doesn't have his new contract yet, and he's pretty verbally not happy about it. And there is some possibility he gets traded. I don't think it's likely, but I think there's a scenario where the Cowboys move him. And here's the thing, because I found this article on Pro Football Network, and they listed out 5 sensible trade destinations for Parsons. They got the Patriots, the Chargers, the Seahawks, the Falcons, and the Jets. So that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean we're interested. That doesn't mean the Cowboys would be interested in sending him to Seattle. But I do think that, like we did with Hendrickson, there is some discussion to be had here. Now, Parsons, I feel a little bit differently about than Hendrickson. Main reason being he's only 26. He just turned 26 last month. This is a guy who you're a little bit concerned about how long he's going to be able to play doing what he does. But this is a guy who, in terms of age, no problem should be able to give you another 5 good years in this league. And realistically, 5 years should be the floor. Now, he's a little undersized. The way he plays, the manner in which he goes about conducting himself on a football field. Okay, that kind of came out wrong. But point I'm trying to make is there is some concern about his ability to last in this league, but a 26-year-old who has done what he has done so far in his career, that is something that you should feel very good about for, honestly, probably another 7 years. Made the Pro Bowl every year of his career, even last year when his numbers went down a little bit and he missed 4 games. He's made All-Pro twice, first team twice, and second team once as well, actually. Gotten MVP votes, come very close to Defensive Player of the Year a few times. This is a little different, right? Because you're also talking about a more flexible player in some ways. In some ways, maybe not as flexible as Trey Hendrickson, but we all know the thing with Micah Parsons is that he's also an off-ball linebacker. And while last year the Cowboys didn't really use him in that role that much, Micah Parsons can play the off-ball linebacker role a pretty good amount. And that might be one way to reduce the wear and tear on him because he's not having to involve himself in direct collisions right at the line of scrimmage on every single play when he's lined up as a linebacker. And that might be something that Mike Macdonald likes. That might be something that Mike Macdonald looks at and goes, hey, that's a little more interesting to me than somebody like Hendrickson, who just lines up on the defensive line. So PFF has been enamored with this guy his whole career pretty much. Last year was a 90, and last year was kind of a down year for him. Now, like Hendrickson, his pass rush grade does the heavy lifting. The run defense grade is decent, but not stellar. It's a little bit different, though. I feel like Hendrickson is just kind of... I think with Hendrickson, you can kind of make an argument that he's not playing the run as aggressively and correctly as he should because he's chasing sacks. Parsons, I think, is undersized, and that just... It does hurt his ability to affect the run. He has very short arms. We know this. And that kind of stuff will show up when you're trying to set the edge and be a good run defender from the edge, which is why he played a lot of linebacker before, but this last year they really kind of moved away from that. So you take a look at PFF and how he lined up over the course of last season. A lot of snaps as a Leo, a lot of snaps as a left outside linebacker, some stuff on the right side, pretty good amount of stuff as like a right outside linebacker, but also a right end outside. So he's lining up all over the place. Whatever you need him to do, he can do. If you're going to put him in a 3-4 and want him to play standing up, that might be preferable to him putting his hand in the dirt, honestly. So that's not something that I would look at and go, oh, that's going to be some kind of a problem. So unlike Hendrickson, who I think there's a little bit of question around, this is a guy who physically should be able to handle whatever it is you throw at him. Now, they didn't have him cover very much last year. He dropped into coverage actually less than Hendrickson last year, even if you go per game. He dropped into coverage less than 2 times a game last year for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, if you go back to previous years, it's really not that much better. So in the last couple years, it hasn't been a big part of his game, but you go back to 2022, pretty prevalent. So I suspect that he can do it. I don't think anything has happened over the last couple years that means he can't do it. He just hasn't. So good fit, theoretically. There are some shortcomings to his game. There are some issues here because he is lightweight and because he is kind of built more like an off-ball linebacker than a pass rusher. But this, to me, is the thing I'm thinking about, because here's the thing. Trading for Micah Parsons is not just a let's win right now move. It is a let's win right now and later, and maybe even later beyond that move. It is the move you make because you might like this team right now, but you're also like, well, maybe it's not going to be this year, but it'll be the next year, or the year after that, or the year after that, or the year after that. Parsons should still be a phenomenal player for you in those seasons. So you don't have to get Parsons and then go, oh my God, we have to win the Super Bowl right this very second. Now, there's a downside there. You're going to have to give up a lot more. You're going to have to probably give up first round pick plus maybe another second round pick. And then you're probably going to have to throw in one of your edge rushers. If you're lucky, it's Nwosu, but it could easily be Hall or Mafe. And I mean, you don't mind giving up one of those 3 guys because you need the snaps to go to Parsons anyway. You can't have 5 edge rushers on your team that all want to play. But it's still a lot to give up when you factor in the draft picks. And then, by the way, Parsons is going to want to get paid close to market setting. You might be pushing up to like $40 million. I could see that very reasonably. And that's kind of tough because he is a flawed player. This is not a Nick Bosa situation. This is not a Myles Garrett situation where the guy is just locked down, no doubt about it. No real holes in his game, no real concerns that you can have about him as a player. There are issues here, and they are issues that McDonald might take umbrage with. And again, I think he will probably come very close to setting the market, if not setting the market. I know he's not a better player than Bosa, but that's how this works. If you are the next guy to get paid, you get paid as if you are better or as good as the guys who got paid right before you. Nevertheless, this is the one that gets me the most excited because I do think he is that good, and I do think that there's more of a window here. Now, one more guy, and this one's going to be a little bit quicker, although this might also be the one that people in some odd way are kind of more interested in. TJ Watt, he's been in trade rumors this whole offseason. He wants a new contract from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh not jumping up and down to necessarily give it to him. It seems like he's going to end up getting extended, but there is definitely a possibility he gets traded to a different team, and maybe Seattle ends up being that team. Now, TJ Watt comes with some of the same concerns as Hendrickson. He is 30. He's going to turn 31 in October. So you're looking at a guy who is a little bit older than Hendrickson. Excuse me. And this is a legendary player, even more so than Hendrickson. This is a future Hall of Famer, almost certainly. I can't imagine any scenario where he's not at this point. And you also have to confront the distinct possibility that he is coming kind of to a different phase of his career. Like, this is a guy who's made the Pro Bowl 7 years in a row. He's made All-Pro every year over the last 6, except for the year where he got hurt and missed 7 games. This is a guy who has won Defensive Player of the Year, and he's been in contention for Defensive Player of the Year several times. He's had big seasons like 22.5 sacks, almost breaking the record, 19 sacks just a couple years ago. And he carries a certain gravitas that a guy like Hendrickson doesn't. So while the value might be a little bit less because he is coming off a lesser season, it wouldn't surprise me if the going rate is actually very similar and you're looking at like a second-round pick plus one of your younger edge rushers. Nwosu, Mafe, Hall. Don't know which one. Again, I have a order of preference. Nwosu would be the guy I would be most excited to swap out. Mafe would be the guy that I'm a little more hesitant to, and Hall is in the middle. And with TJ Watt, you don't really have any concerns about him being able to play in McDonald's defense because he's been playing stand-up for most of his career anyway. He is an outside linebacker. You go back to Pro Football Focus, graded out brilliantly in both categories last year. It wasn't his best year in terms of raw numbers, but over a 90 in both pass rush and run defense. He's also considered to be the best, or at least one of the best, coverage edge rushers in the league. So you got nothing to worry about there. And you look at him, lines up outside as an end, left end, outside all the time, lines up as an outside linebacker all the time. So if you ascribe meaning to those PFF numbers, and again, they operate more on semantics than anything else, he can do both. And I mean, we know he can do both. You don't really have to sit here and worry, can TJ Watt play standing up in a 3-4 defense? Like, he can. It's not even anything you need to be worried about. And while he didn't drop into coverage a ton last year, he did drop into coverage about as much as some of our edge rushers did, like Derek Hall, and in terms of, rate, Uchenna Nwosu as well. Not quite as much as Boye Mafe, but there's no doubt that he can do it, also because he's also been very good at it for most of his career. Go back to 2023, which was a year he almost won Defensive Player of the Year. He dropped into coverage 56 times. That's slightly less than Mafe. Not really worth getting into working yourself up into a place of concern about it. But the injuries are a little bit of a concern. He did have a pretty major one in 2022 that took away 7 games. And again, the fall off here is notable, right? He went from a guy who got 19 sacks in 2023 to 11.5 in 2024. Seems like the peak of his game is behind him at this point. It does. It feels like he's not going to continue to be the best or in conversation for the best defensive player in the league. He'll be a very, very good one, and he wants to get paid too. Now, I don't think he'll get paid at the top of the market like Micah Parsons would because he's older, but you are probably looking at 34, 35 million a year if I had to guess. And it could easily be higher. Pass rushers get paid, period. So I'm a little hesitant on this one. Maybe if it's cheaper than I'm thinking, like I think the Hawks Nest suggested maybe like a 3rd round pick and one of our edge rushers. That's a little bit better. But I feel like this is a contract you end up regretting. This is the one that ends up being a big albatross because he just can't stay healthy anymore. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I'm not against any of this. I'm not completely enamored with any of this. I mean, if these players were perfect and they were no doubt about it going to be amazing for you over the next 5 years, you probably wouldn't be able to trade for them, right? Like maybe Micah Parsons is kind of an exception because the Cowboys have put themselves in a tough situation with Dak's contract and CD's contract, and they don't want to give Parsons the big contract as well because they're worried about their ability to field the rest of the team, I guess. But Watt and Hendrickson could definitely go the other way, right? Hendrickson and Watt, if they ended up having decent years next year, but then fading off into semi-obscurity, it wouldn't be shocking. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. So there is a gamble. But if there wasn't a gamble, there'd be nothing to talk about because these guys wouldn't be available. So Parsons remains my favorite because of his youth, but I definitely think there's a price where you're obligated to gun it on Hendrickson and Watt. But again, I ask, what is going to be the outcome here if they make this big trade and the addition of an elite edge rusher pushes them into a top 3 defense this year? Is that going to win the Super Bowl? Is this offense with a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, unsure offensive line, downgraded receivers, is that going to realistically compete for the Super Bowl? Because if you don't compete for the Super Bowl after making a trade like this, then it probably wasn't a very good trade. Unless it's Parsons. Unless it's Parsons, then it's different. But that's going to be a costly trade too, so you better have a good season after you make that one too, because you're going to give up so many picks. Okay, so I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. 2 pretty long videos today. Again, we're in the off season. Things are going to be a little bit slow, but thought I'd go ahead and talk about this at length here because now that we're post draft, post the training camp stuff, we can at least have this discussion. Let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys later on. Go Hawks. And yeah, should we take the swing?